Chapter 21. The towns round the Golden Valley didn't think much of one another, as if combined in a league, not for trade but for purposes of envy, spite and vendetta. Living in a paradise, they chose to enact a purgatory, where the new mill money flowing in seemed not to preserve the equilibrium of meanness and stultification they all thought they had reached, so much as to knock all lopsided again. The precise geography of the watershed was now primary, where races might go, for wheels to be driven and workshops to be run from. 'Twas like coming before the final judge and discovering that good and useful lives, innocence of wrongdoing, purity of character, count for less than what he really wishes of us. Something we have no more suspected than anyone in the valley had ever imagined, that the flow of water through nature, along a gradient provided free by the same deity, might be reshaped to drive a row of looms, each working thousands of yarns in strictest right angularity, as far from earthly forms as possible, nor that every stage of the morphosis would have its equivalent in pounds, shillings, and pence. Yet some will wish but to flee, to Gloucester, to London, to America, anywhere but the sink of village bickering. So, at least, did Charles represent his needs for a future outside the valley. Rebecca gazed back, an enigma to him, Eve in paradise, or Eurydice in hell, yet to learn after it was too late where she had been. His mind raced with ancient stories. How could he allow that she might have her own story? How could he not choose the easier road and refer her to some male character, the love-crazy poet, the tempted innocent? Was he supposed to light a pipe, pick her up, settle back and read her all in one sitting? Was this what women wanted? Whom could he ask? Had he gone to his father, already retreating into the unstirred labyrinths of deafness, though they'd been shouting at each other all their lives? Had the elder Charles for once showed some sympathy? Who knows where they might have taken it? Instead, accepting that he must not love this young man as he had once, secretly, with all the mindless surrender of a mother, loved Charlie the baby. Taking Charles Jr.'s arm, he would have steered him down a gradient of noise till they could shout comfortably. They'd be standing by the little pond, ducks drifting, gnats a-swarm. Is she yawny then, too? Nobody's going to marry you, you young fool, unless there's something really wrong with her. What do women want? A good provider, not some stargazer who won't grow up. If the position at Greenwich, Sam Peach is not your friend. For every effort he makes on your behalf, there will be a price, and you may not enjoy paying it when it falls due. All subjunctive, of course. Had young Mason gone to his father, this might have been the conversation likely to result. They found a hilltop and picnicked. Mason, she had already noticed, searched ever in the smoky distance, beyond the observatory and the winding of the river, for the East India docks. "Do you dream of the far Indies?" she asked finally. "I do. I wish we might go." He'd been, in fact, just about to tell her. It delighted him, this wordless transgression of cause and effect. Aloud, "So we might." And her face turned to him. "What are you doing on 6th of June, 1761? Innocently expectant. "Oh, I'd have to look in my calendar of engagements. Are you inviting me off to the Indies then?" "Sumatra, if we're lucky." "If we're not?" "Dunno. Hounslow Heath?" "I meant, would you go alone? Leave me here?" "'Twould have to be together." She was looking at him closely. He meant something else, but she couldn't quite see what. "Would we sail in an Indiaman?" "Halfway round the world." "Aye, and back. And would we be nabobs?" "Alas, my Becca, nor even chicken nabobs. Though we might put aside enough to bespeak an orrery, perhaps find employment as operators, appearing in public rooms up and down the coaching routes." "You won't have this job any more, stargazer's apprentice or whatever it be." "The work has to go on," he told her. "Down here the rivalry with France, keen as ever. Out there, timeless. Everything upon the move, no pattern never to repeat itself. Someone at Greenwich, every night the sky allows, must open the shutters to its majesty, and go in again to the unforgiving snout and secure the obs. If not me, someone. I can't believe Dr. Bradley wouldn't want you back." "You see how he is. His age, how merciless. By the time we returned, we might no longer be able to look to his support." "This sounds like politics, Hart. I thought you gazed at the stars and thought higher thoughts, you people." Ah, alas, not exactly. Astronomy is as soiled at the hands of the Palamites as every other business in this kingdom, and we ever at the mercy of place jobbery, as much as any nincompoop at court." "Why disgruntlement? I had no idea." Neither had he. "Kiss me anyway." Never kissed a placeman before. "Play your cards handsomely, ye shall have what we call the Newcastle special." "Hum. And I shall learn Malay, Hindu, Chinese too. I'll be like one of those talking parrots. Oh, mopery. You think I talk too much now. But eastward bound, I shall never give those patient ears a moment of rest. And you, unfortunate lad, must suffer it, though counted a blessing my wish was not to take lessons upon the bagpipes." As if this middle-aged Gothicism of Mason's were but some of the residue darkened and soured of an earlier and more hopeful bottling of self. He tells Dixon of how, one night near the solstice, courting, they decided to ride south to view Stonehenge by moonlight, she close and snug upon the pillion, wind rushing by, those expressive arms, all his back a shiver and fingers aching, presently falling in with the ancient Welsh cattle route called the Calfway, that ran from Bisley down to Chelford and up the other side of the valley, toward the Salisbury plain. A day, a night, love beneath hedges, sleep another day, arriving a few hours before sunset upon Midsummer Eve. She was restless. She moved closer to him. Charlie, it's very old, isn't it? What is it? The old stargazers used it. It's too familiar. I've this feeling I know the place and it knows me. Could it be our ancestors, even so long ago, in your family or mine? Oh, we've been millers and bakers forever, yet it might be some of yours. We did have relations hereabouts. Then depend upon it, if you mark the mass of these stones, there must have once been full employment round here, and for many years. Some of yours were bound to have been in on it. But dear, oh dear, now won't tongues be a wag from Bisley to Stroud? Lord in thy mercy, he's married a Druid. Their rhythms suddenly lapsed. Hearing him speak the verb, lately so much upon her mind and more so than upon her lips, having left her for a moment abashed. He snapped his fingers. But of course you are a Druid, aren't you? Frightfully awkward. Though how would I have known? You don't look Druid particularly. Not as if I'd examined you as to religious beliefs or anything, is it? So, Druid, well, do you still put people in those wicker things and set them on fire? Or have you had a reformation of your faith as well? He was smiling companionably as if expecting some reply to this. By surprise, she allowed herself a merry laugh, made a fist, and slowly but meaningfully brought it to his mouth. And in Sapperton, they'll say, Lord in thy mercy, she's married an idiot. And as they ascended for the first time to the observatory, she gave Charlie another of her open-handed smacks upon the wig top. Druids! You have the presumption to quiz me about Druids? Don't fancy it much, hey? He stood with bags and boxes, already aching from the climb, yet aware that this was exactly how he'd prefer to come breezing into his new position, helplessly burdened and under affectionate assault by this handsome lass, this particular one. Well, look at it. It's peculiar, isn't it? Are you taking me to one of these sinister castles? Oh, I've read about them. Secret rituals, folk in capes and hoods, sex, torture, nuns and monks. Why, Charlie, the idea. Hold, I never said, excuse, you've read about what? And night falling as well. They had heard an early owl. And what might go in that part there? An ancient well, old as Stonehenge anyway. Flamsteed used it for obs in the daytime. I'll show you it tomorrow, if I may. And what sort of looks will she and Susanna be exchanging there in the courtyard of the observatory, across the wind that bears away everything spoken? Steps from the zero meridian of the world, the young mistress in her doorway, the sorcerer's apprentice's lower-born wife, with her head inclined out of politeness, yet her eyes gazing out of curiosity. When does Rebecca begin to suspect that She is there to guarantee her husband's behaviour. He wants to dream for her a resurrection. Nothing Gothic nor even scriptural. Rather a pleasant, pretty ascent. Some breezy forenoon out of the tended patch before the stone. St. Cannums in the sunlight, painted ladies buffeted among swaying wildflowers, all then rushing downward in a spectral blur as she rises above the valley into the wind. The shape of Sapperton in finished purity below, the ridgeline behind her, cold, etched, that should have kept them from Oxford and Bradley's and all that came after. He must often remind himself not to search the boys' faces too intently for Rebecca's. It makes them squirm, which gives him little joy. Upon days when he knows he will see them, he stares into his mirror, memorizing his own face well enough to filter it out of Willies and Doc's, leaving, if the trick succeed, Rebecca's alone, her dear living face, though at about half the optical resolution, he guesses. When the time comes, he finds he cannot remember what he looks like. Withal, their faces are their own, unsortably, and claim the moment. "Will there be savages?" William asks. "Will you be afraid?" "Yes, and maybe." "Will you have a rifle?" "I'll have a telescope." "Maybe they'll think it's a rifle." "Going where Mama go?" asked Dr. Isaac. "Someday," Mason almost replies. "Don't know." He picks the boy up, turns him upside down, and holds him by his feet. "Now then, what's this?" "Me too," cries Will, one in each arm. "I'll need to be at least this strong in America." Each time he bids them farewell and rides away, he pretends there'll be at least one more visit. They watch him depart, smaller in the doorway than in his embrace, and at the turn of the road, hand in hand, go dashing off. London is changed. There's less welcome than he discovers he's been wishing for. Everywhere he looks are squalid mementos of his history in the town, one station after another upon a progress melancholic. Mason has pimped for masculine. That is his sin. What they whisper of even before his trailing boot sole has left the carpet of the foyer. He has acquiesced in an elaborate seduction of not only the soprano within, but the comical basso at the door as well. He knows what is happening, yet at the same time, how can he know? Isn't he but a simple lad from the country? Here comes the sly Cambridge mathematician. By the time Mason smokes his game, 'tis too late, and he is all but packed off to America and well out of the way, whilst the interloper stops at home, making briskly what interest he may. That would be the text of it, anyhow, with sermons upon it aplenty, no doubt, to follow. The pilgrim, however long or crooked his road, may keep ever before him the holy place he must by his faith seek. As the American ranger, however indeterminate or unposted his wilderness, may enjoy, ever at his back, the impulse of duty he must by his honour attend, Mason, not quite grown undeceived as to places that may no longer exist, nor yet quite reluctant enough to be pushed into someone else's notion of futurity, is thus restricted to the outer suburbs that ring the earthly city, the capital at the heart of his time. Not altogether banished from, though as little welcomed into, that distant splendour. By this formula, any visit he makes with masculine is fated to add a public component to what, in private, is already proving unendurable. Penance, Mason declares. They meet in London, summer 63, at Munn Masculine's rooms near New Bond Street, with Mason waiting to hear about the engagement in America, and Neville Masculine on the eve of sailing off upon the Barbados trials of Mr. Harrison's bothersome watch. The eminent young Lalande, who has recently, in 62, succeeded J.N. Delisle in the chair of astronomy in the Collège de France, is likewise in town to view trials of the chronometer and to dine at the Mitre Club as well. "He's but my age," remarks Masculine, "adjunct astronomer at the Paris Observatory before he was 21. You, by contrast, was it 28 when you went to work for Bradley?" "Withal, I am 6 years older than him to begin with," grunts Mason. "That gives him a jump of, 13, 14 years? Better get cracking, hadn't we?" Regard this. We're talking about Lalande again. For a Frenchman, he doesn't seem that difficult. Rather idolizes me, as a matter of fact, though I can't imagine why. Mason ought to reply, because he's too young to judge character, but instead grimaces diplomatically. "Aha! Here he comes now." "Neville, che maître." They are at one another's cheeks. Mason immediately suspects that Masculine has hired an actor, a quasi-amateur stroller at that, to impersonate the famed philosopher. "Dr. Bradley was the lumina of our little constellation of astronomers, sir." The Frenchman, to appearance sincere, greets Mason. "Lemonnier, my mentor, worshipped him." There is a crash and a great voiced roar. A woman shrieks and several sets of footsteps hasten away. "Ah, and you'll get to meet Munn," his brother, in a curatical murmur, who now comes thumping in. "Just down from Bath, Neville. Need a good sleep to wake me up. Met this Herschel fella at the Octagon Chapel. Rather your sort of individ, I'd imagine. Astrologer like yourself. Frightfully damned talented organist as well, goes without saying. Doodly. Well, you get the idea. Hello, JJ, still in town? Who's this? Looks like he forgot where the punch bowl went. All in fun, sir. And let us see what Neville did give you to drink. Ah." He pretends to back away in terror from Mason's cup. The lad means well, of course, but he has no idea of hospitality. Come along. "I'll go with you," says J.J. Lalande. "I'm off to Drury Lane to see Florizel and Perdita." "Both of them, eh?" Munn shaking his head in admiration. "You French? Say." The next thing Mason knows, night has fallen and he is in a quarter of the city previously unknown to him. Fans of violet light from lanterns of tinted glass reveal silent crowds of hastening men and women. Odd screams now and then break the determined rush of footfalls. Munn seems unconcerned at the firmness of the mobility's grip upon them once they have entered the current. Soon he has vanished, leaving Mason to find his way back, though by now 'tis unclear if, through an agency yet to be discovered, he has not already, wig and waistcoat, been not so much transported as translated to a congruent street somewhere in America.